Hey guys, Dr. Josh McClain here at Body Rejuvenation with the Rejuvenation Academy. Today we are going to nerd out and get after the science behind how you maintain the highest possible output that you can for as long as possible. So you understand this, and then we're going to give you all the workouts you need to go in and get after it in a very wrestling specific way. All right, so here we go. Let's get nerdy. All right, guys, so when I say nerd out, Rejuvenation Academy is exactly that. We have all the fitness, nutrition, cardio, everything you need from injury and prevention on the wrestling specific side of things. So go over to Rejuvenation Academy on Facebook, find us, follow us on YouTube. Everything we got going on is next level. So below, before I forget, don't forget to hit that subscribe button over here, above, below, around, wherever you are. And also go down in the description. There is going to be a workout for you that you can download. It's got 3 high intensity workouts on there. You're going to use the information we're going to talk through to be able to try to maintain that maximal output. So when I start looking at this, I got a few things I want to talk through. One is being what we call steady state. 2 is what we call the carbon dioxide oxygen overflow. And then the last one I want to talk through is what we should expect after we start looking at these. So what I mean by steady state is if I put somebody on a treadmill and I maintain it at the same pace, what's going to eventually happen is their heart rate starts off down here somewhere. And eventually it's going to start working its way up. But if I don't change anything else about that intensity, at some point they're going to reach what they call the steady state. And then they're going to kind of plateau out. Well, then if I change the incline or the speed on the treadmill again, they're going to start to make their way up. They're going to plateau out. They're going to make their way up. They're going to plateau out. Every time they hit this, this is called a steady state. So what that means is that they're able to maintain that intensity for a prolonged amount of time, and their heart rate doesn't just keep going straight up. So as I look at this, once I find somebody's threshold that will break, all of a sudden they need to take a break and they end up going down because they can no longer maintain that intensity. When we do our 12-minute run test, if you haven't done this already, go find the performance document. I'll put a link to it down in the description here. Go find that thing, do your 12-minute run, because what you end up finding is that during that 12-minute run, again, your heart rate starts somewhere down here. After 12 minutes of you going as hard and as far as you can, at some point, you're going to start to do one of 2 things. One, up here, either you're going to reach your max heart rate or max intensity, and then you have to take a little break. You have to slow it down. You have to do something. Then you can kind of ramp it back up, and you might get this effect here. The other thing that's going to happen is you're actually going to max out your 12 right here. But what does that tell me? It tells me that you probably haven't even hit your max, or you haven't pushed your max intensity through that time period. So you might actually have more room to improve your maximal output, and you didn't even know it because you perceived that you were going all out as hard as you could for 12 minutes, but really the data says that you didn't. So until we start finding that threshold of where we start to fail, we cannot make any assumptions about how much output we can put. So now looking at this, and what does this tell us, right? So the important part of this is looking at the graph of oxygen here, carbon dioxide here, over time. And when I look at this graph, there's a couple important things that start to end up happening. One is every time I start exercise, I start in an aerobic phase, which means that I have oxygen available for my body to use. And what's going to happen over time, the harder I start to work out, the less oxygen I start to have available. I max out my heart rate, I max out my lung volume, I max out how much oxygen I can have in my body and be transporting at the same time. Anytime I exercise, I also produce waste, or carbon dioxide, lactate, etc. There's multiple different waste byproducts that happen, but when we look at this, what's going to happen is it's going to start to ramp up here. And at some point, these 2 are going to overlap, which in this scenario is right here. That point is critical for being able to identify how high of an output I can maintain and for how long. So once I start to find this phase, what's going to happen eventually is that I'm going to have to slow down until my oxygen amount comes back up and my carbon dioxide amount goes back down. And at that threshold, which is somewhere right in here, if you look at the data, is going to be your maximum output for where you are now. Now, your overall goal with training high intensity and building up that endurance and that stamina is being able to, 1, push this number as high as absolutely possible. But then the second part that you want to be able to do, that max number, so this is your max, and now you want to be able to close the gap with your average as much as possible. So if this was my max heart rate, every time I hit that, I have to start slowing down. Then my gap between my max and my average is my overall work capacity. What we're going to see is that most people, so I'm going to say work over time. So they start off really hard in a wrestling match, and eventually, aka ride out the storm, win it in the third, is going to happen like this, right? My goal is to be able to go through this same process, be able to maintain up here as high as possible. If this is you and this is me, you now have the leading advantage every time that it comes to your performance. All right, so that's the lowdown on the physiology of it. Go get those workouts, get after it, take your performance to the next level. Join us at Rejuve Wrestling Academy on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, and let's get after this stuff so we can have a successful season ahead. All right, have fun.